Hello, this is for the extra credit discussion board. I decided to do a video as it was extra credit, and that lets me put a little bit more thought into this, as it's such a deep kind of idea. And it also lets me get my points across more clearly as well. So there's 4 questions. The first one is race a valid statistical assessment of population? Why or why not? Assessment of population, it depends. Last week we talked about California and Texas and Florida, and you absolutely could, because there's so many different cultures inside of America. You could absolutely break it down like that. But if you were to break down political assessments or population assessments in Western Europe, it's gonna be a little bit harder. No one's gonna be harder, but it's more of a why are you doing this? So yes, if the population is as vast as it could be, and no, if the population isn't that big. Question 2, how was/is race used to create a set caste and caste-like system? In the early 1800s in America, we had slavery, and that's an undisputed fact. We did something terrible, and and those people were treated like slaves as they were African. And then the 14th Amendment happened, and slavery is gone as an establishment, but it's still used as a punishment. 15th Amendment comes out, and no slaves can be brought in, no indentured servitude can be brought in, and the 16th Amendment gets rid of slavery altogether. So yes, but in that process, you still had Jim Crow laws. And Jim Crow laws were a big problem because you still had separation between people. And we can look at pictures between colored and white drinking fountain. Let me pull up a picture. And you can see that this, for example, if I can turn this around, I'll just do this. The white is a nice fountain, it's going to the ground, you're going to get some nice water, while the colored fountain, it's all rusted. I'm not sure if this could see anything, but it's all rusted. It's not that well put together. You're going to have to lean down, so it's just terrible. It's not, you're not going to want to drink out of it. It sucks. Question 3. How is historic geographic pattern associated with race caste systems still evident today? This one is a little bit harder on how is it still evident today. You could still break down races in cities like Detroit and see what the amount of Caucasians versus everybody else. And then you could break that down again in the richest city in the world, and you could break that down. You could talk about how Dubai is one of the richest cities in the world and say, well, that's an all Arab, so are Arabs richer than the rest of the world? I can't see evident today besides more personal racism. Historic geographic pattern associated with race and caste systems. I would say poverty. Certain neighborhoods are more broken down, but you can't associate race with wealth. And that's something we need to stop doing in America, is associating people that are of color to be poorer, when that's just wrong. The only problem is this question is asking me to prove something. How is historic geographic pattern associated with race and caste system still evident today? Again, I'd have to go back to poverty, I feel, is the only appropriate answer, because it's what breaks down a caste system in America. You could look at a caste system and see who is living in where and how those lives are being affected and what the races are. Question 4. Select either systematic racism or implicit bias to define the term and describe a barrier that is or has been created. So we'll go with implicit biases. That's something I did actually mention earlier. Let's just search this up real quick. Implicit bias in society, and this is from Wikipedia. Size is too small for me to read. Ugh. That's much better. In social identity theory, an implicit bias or implicit stereotype is the pre-reflective attribution of a particular qualities by an individual to a member outside some social group. Period. Implicit stereotypes are, though, to be shaped by experience and based on learned association between particular qualities and social categories, including race and or gender, period. Individuals' perceptions and behaviors can be influenced by implicit stereotypes they hold, even if they are sometimes unaware of such stereotypes, period. So, this is prejudice. This is an exact, what prejudice is. And though we still face this with implicit bias, as it says, taught behavior. A really implicit bias that myself and many other coworkers that I've had in the past have always talked about is that if you have, and let me clarify, I'm a server, I've worked at a variety of different restaurants, Hook and Reel, Old Chicago, Chicago Connection, Boise Fry Company, Flying Pie, to name a few. With all of these restaurants, not just myself, and I will fall guilty of this, a lot of my coworkers, if they would have a table that is Latino, we don't take care of them as well, because Latino tables do not tip as well. And it's not just me saying this. This has been years of coworkers of mine saying this. Even my first day at a formal restaurant, they said, if you have a Latino table, treat them terribly. And I walked in, I was like, it's because they tip poorly. And they were like, well, how do you know this already? And it's something that's happened. It's something that people talk about. If you're a Latino that walks into a restaurant, I know but there's a possibility you're not going to tip me well. Though, I've been proven very wrong with this. I've had tons of tables and even new friends that have come in that have been Latino that have been like, no, I'm going to treat you like a normal table. And they always thank me for just being nicer than the rest of the staff. And so that seems to be a problem. For example of this, there's actually a gentleman, his name is Antonio. He owns a taco truck off of Houston and 5 Mile if you're in the local Boise area. And I don't go there as frequently as I used to just because the schedule changes and everything. But I always go up there. I always get maybe 6 to 8 tacos, and I'm always putting a $20 tip inside of that because he is constantly taking care of me when he has come in to my restaurants that I've worked at. And he's constantly given me 20% tips and $20 tips. And so it means a lot when somebody can come in and break those stereotypes. And again, this is a lot of restaurant sources. Like, this is a lot of personal bias that these happen. And it's not good for these to happen. I hope this was up to snuff for a video for extra credit. Though, when we get back to our regular scheduled broadcasting, we will do just regular text. If there's an extra credit opportunity and you don't want me to do this again, please let me know. Just leave a comment on here in the discussion board, and I won't do this again. I really just use Wikipedia as for my sources for everything else, and the picture that I showed earlier. I can't cite that as I used through Google Images. Until then, see you guys.